been used from traditional ways. There used to be wood wheels to run some grinding stones. We call them water wheels. We cut them gatta here. It's in Nepali language. So one top stone is rotated with the help of water. Of course, you know this thing. So slowly that technology started to improve. Instead of wooden wheel, we started metal wheels. Even the pipe was, the flume was like wooden flume. We changed it to metal flume. So that was the beginning of it. Then people started to see, why just we run the stones? So then the line shaft introduced in between the technology. So you can run the other wheels to use the rice hauling, expeling, grinding of flour. So from the mechanical energy itself, we call it improved water mills, started to use the water energy. Then one brilliant idea came, people started to add on the generators for the mill lighting and some nearby house lighting. We call multi-purpose power unit. That's including a generator in the evening time. So that was the history for the water mills to come in the form of micro hydro turbines in 70s. Then all the way through 70s to till date, we still have a technology called micro hydro, which is basically up to 100 kilowatt. And then we move to the higher side, we call it mini hydro, we go up to 1 megawatt. And then above that, there is another way of doing it that's beyond the scope of AEPC, so we are supporting in hydro up to 1 megawatt. Recently in hydro, we are basically focusing to introduce private sector investment in mini and micro hydro, basically in mini hydros, which eventually could be connected to grid, which can serve more than a small village. We can go up to 5,000, 6,000 households in a region. Could be fit for a local government to have its own power utility. So basically in hydro from 70 to now, we moved to from the water mills to the mini hydro, which is basically a micro utility energy unit. But we have not left anything else. The wells is still being subsidized, still in the carbon project, still people are using water wells, so we are also supporting water wells, but these are all improved. But their percentage of demand is going down year by year because there is a reach of electricity, people's livelihood changed, people's standard of living in the villages it changed, so people are really moving in upper scale of energy ladders and economic standards of living standards. Similarly, the other technology, if you call, is like the bioenergy. Basically, we still use a lot of biomass as a cooking fuel. Most of the energy we use is basically for cooking because this country is not that industrialized. When we talk about the electricity, we are in 50-50, but when we talk in total energy, still around 65% of energy comes from biomass. So we have been struggling to change some of the patterns of using the biomass. Basically for cooking energy, we have an open fire system with 3 stones, tripod metal oven. That was the traditional the cooking furnace for us. And then we worked with these mud stoves and tried to help them out to release their smoke out of the house. We call it improved cook stove. So that was a kind of basic intervention to improve the cooking in the rural areas. We did a lot of effort to change that, and we reached up to 1.5 million households who were cooking on the biomass. And that was a kind of big innovation to the rural people that you can live without smoke. But being a cold country, we had a small ecosystem of cooking itself. Because of poverty, you have to warm your house, you have to live with the cold climate, so it was not a very straightforward solution. The open hearth of big firewood was not only detrimental, it was helpful also for the livelihood of the villages. They sit around the open fire and get the warmth and all, and even the house they make with the wooden things, these wood are not treated, so they believe that the smoke coming out the open fire is bringing some charcoal to the wood, and that last long. So it was really a tricky thing to have a straightforward smoke out solution. It was not easily accepted. Then you have the food patterns, behavior, cattle food. So many complexities came in to have a straightforward solution. So that journey was useful, informative, but it still was not straightforward. People still opted that improved stove as optional for cooking food, but the rest of their energy and their heat requirement still has to be managed through different ways. So it was another lesson that how you can change these stoves in the rural areas. Now we moved these from this mud stove to metal stoves, metal of different like tier. Now it's called tier 1 to tier 5. We are struggling to move to tier 3 to 4 rather than tier 1 to 2. But this is good, but still it has a lot of implication to have a complete transformation on the cooking system. Then in the meantime, we also had this agri-based economy, so we worked on the biogas things. Most of the people in the agriculture livelihood, they always had some cattle, so we introduced this domestic biogas. So a biogas of 2 meter cube, 4 meter cube or 6 meter cube, depending on the size of the family and the size of the cattle they can have. This technology also became quite popular. It was really a different level, that going from wood to a smokeless, a gas burner. That was a kind of big jump, and it was quite strongly accepted. Government also supported it as a part of the subsidy. It has a bigger ecosystem of agricultural cross-cutting issues. You have to rear cattle, you will get the refined manure, you get the gas. There's so many integrated benefits. So this technology also became quite popular. We are still supporting it, and we reached out to 500,000 households using biogas. This was the biggest achievement in terms of converting cooking solutions, and it became a landmark program. Many of the countries, they came to learn this biogas technology in Nepal. It's simple, but when you scale it up, it was kind of a good demonstrated program to the region and some part of the developing and least developed countries. In that, now we have moved from a domestic biogas to a large biogas scheme. Recently, we are supporting private sector, commercial, and local municipalities and the government to manage their waste and convert it into the energy. So recently, from last 3-4 years, we have also commissioned few projects up to 4,000 meter cube, which also became a kind of showcase. It's been supported by World Bank. This became a history for the biogas and biomass energy. So in the cooking, we were moving on from this kind of open fire to a large biogas and biomass. Recently, our national utility industry called Nepal Electricity Authority is claiming that they have sufficient power in their grid, and they aim to reach to all by another 5 years. So we are really supporting them to go to consume more electricity, and there is a debate going on to convert all the cook stoves to electric stoves. So we are heading that initiative of the government in the years to come to convert most of our traditional stoves, gas stoves. In the meantime, without our efforts, because of the commercialization, because of the purchasing capacity, the LPG got introduced in the market, liquefied petroleum gas, which is 33% of the stoves using the LPG. We completely import it. So there is a national debate that we should replace it with electricity. So that thing is the basic movement of this small technology to big size. We have all these case studies, how we moved up. I think my colleague you are meeting or anyone you meet, we are in the same family. The government chair, the APC is leading the program. All the rest of the stakeholders are part and parcel of this. So wherever you go, whatever people claim is mostly associated with the same initiative led by APC. as a government entity. This is the journey. I think it was very relevant with the time because of the economic conditions of people. Equally important to a very remote village as like a induction stove in the Kathmandu, a big initiative, biogas in other areas. Their life is really troubled because of not having a basic information. How can they make the cooking much cleaner, so to say? So we were embracing all, and we are still continuing. But we now the percentage, as I said, the small and the rural technologies is rather going down, and then the biggest technologies are coming up. And we are going from private initiative to public initiative, again to the private initiative. As we started in the beginning, this was the program supporting the innovative and creative private people to do something like water mills, as I said. This was initially started to enable a bigger solution which are integrated with mainstream energy. So it came back again after 10, 20 years, again encouraging private sector to have more investment. And one of the initiatives we started, this people you heard, this guy is working for APC, is trying to push the credit and financing models to private sector. From his talk also you realize, and you are already your own experience, investment to energy utility, which is primarily we believe as the services that people should get from the government. People do not want to participate in energy generating systems. It is like a road or drinking water, electricity should come from the government. So whenever we try to introduce credit to, for the access agenda, it should be primarily the responsibility of the government. When it comes to the enterprising, as a business, it's people's choice to do the business in energy. So we are looking to finance them innovative way to bring the cost of generating and converting energy to make it competitive to sell in a market and make some profit. But this is as a business. But when it comes to the access or clean cooking solutions, it is prime. Things comes when you think it from the microeconomic perspective. So these things are under discussion from long, and I don't want to confuse you that everyone talks about commercializing the rural energy market. This debate is on, basically pushed by multilateral banking. They have 60% subsidy, and we ask them to do 40% financing, and it's not easy. It comes to a house around $200 to $300 for the construction cost. That's too much for them. Then they have to pay the tariff, then they have to arrange money for operation and maintenance. So this financing sounds very nice that you get the credit, you get the you collect the tariff and pay it back. It's not a simple equation. It has multiple issues coming in: poverty, of course, social conflict, equity issue. Why should the poor pay? All this thing comes as a bundle of argument that virtually retards the faster movement of credit in rural areas for this thing. So the credit issue is one, as you are asking a lot of questions. So we are more or less convinced by our this 25 years journey that whatever is left over, we have to complete them with the government initiative to make the minimal access to energy. Then let them think what energy enterprising whether they are interested, because we have a lot of solar technology came in, which could be harnessed in a local level, in a private or public, to make the regular income of individual or the government. There we can have the partners. So we are opening a window called a challenge fund, that if you are interested in energy enterprising, then you give us your proposal with some challenge item in it, or some innovative, creative methodology. So we could have a partnership, or we could have you some concessional financing or grant financing like BGF or interest subsidy or tax subsidy, whatever. So this is for enterprising basically. But we are more or convinced. I'm also meeting the policy people every day, and we are more directing towards the leftovers should have the access as soon as possible. Let's not push them to arrange a credit and wait another 5 years to have access to electricity. So this is in the credit side. The other two more complicated and more important issues are the sustainability of the things. One is the technical sustainability. We have a big problem that all the investment we made is almost waste, because the technology we purchased is where it didn't work properly to this life. So it's just a waste. So I think the biggest challenge is how to improve the quality of the product we bring in our programs in the first place. Since the introduction of the explosion of technology in the developing world, some of the people have no idea what they are manufacturing. Many of the people, they don't know what they are buying. They're just reading some labels and bringing it to the people. It doesn't work. And the people's voice is low. They cannot raise any concerns, and this is a total waste to the economics. So we are largely suffering. I don't claim these numbers were very interesting, but this is a challenge for us to accept it and improve it. So I think Ethiopia also have same problems, and especially the policymakers, we have a challenge how we can minimize it. You may not make it 100% perfect. So how to define your technical standards, how to discipline your private sector suppliers, how to penalize them if they're not meeting their promises. This is a big issue on the technical side. And the second part of the sustainability is, of course, the people's awareness and capacity to manage it. Because this distributed energy solutions cannot afford a high-skilled technician in the villages. So someone has to manage it with a very, very limited knowledge. So it could be coupled with the technology, that the technology must be sourced that it needs minimal maintenance. Second, we have to have some skills developed in local areas that can eventually take care, if not promptly, with some time lags. So the sustainability on the social side and the maintenance side is another big issue. Even we source something good over a period of time, because of the knowledge, because of the capacity to manage, again it is not sustainable. So the sustainability is a big issue that has a technical component, and then we have the social or the operational management issue with it. So that eventually led us to thinking that a very small scale technology might not be worth to promote, because we have to train everyone to do that. So why don't we bring it to a group? So we upgrade our technology size so that we can have a minimal definition of technology where a small institution can be created, a small technical person will be arranged, and it still provide the services. So we are basically now focusing to move to the community kind of systems, bigger systems. So one system providing 100 households. So one mid-class technician can be hired with the income of whatever you collect from the services. So that kind of thing we are learning from our past. So we're working on that. So in principle, I think it has been a very successful program. A lot of donor communities supported us. Basically, the conditions of rural people was very, very bad. So there's a lot of philanthropic, sentimental thing came into the picture, and a lot of people supported it, especially Danish, Norwegian, German, were the principal funding agencies in our energy sector, renewable energy sector. We did a lot of discussion with environmental related issues. So the climate change and clean development mechanism, we entered into that. Whatever technology we promoted, we counted them for the carbon reduction, and we have already registered 7 projects in CDM, and we are receiving the carbon credit fund from that. It's almost 13 million we have already received with our 7 projects registered in UNFCCC. It was quite a good recognition that the initiative we did was recognized as a standard practice to reduce carbon and then That's the quite a big achievement for a small developing countries or least developed countries like Nepal. Recently, the initiative changed into the Green Climate Fund, as you all know. We became accredited to the Green Climate Fund also, the APC. That's another recognition that at least the work we have done, the promises we made are believed and acknowledged. So we are struggling to submit some project to convince them that what we have promised we will meet, and we will use your fund in a judicial way. So that struggle is one of the challenge for me to push forward to get it. The situation of the country in terms of access to electricity is changed, as you said. When the APC was started, it was less than 20% electrified countries in the 90s. Now it's almost 90% electrified, so to say. So the initiative we have been doing is now obsolete. So in order to stay in the business and the renewable energy the sector, APC is looking some new avenues to go with the energy mix, the climate financing, and then energy efficiency. These areas are now the future for the small organization which was doing some contemporary energy issues and to move forward with the new avenues coming. Maybe a couple of years, maybe up to 5 years, we can live with this transformation from the fossil fuel or bioenergy to cooking, electric cooking. Most probably is the most priority agenda of the government because it has multiple benefits, reduces the import, encourages the use of electricity, and of course change the people's life from smoke and the climate unfriendly to climate friendly energy practices. So this is what we have been doing, and there were a lot of good and bad things we learned. Basically, because of the supply chain, the efficiency of the subsidy was not that good. It has to go all the way from central capital to the very remote areas, and it was a market-led initiative. It did work very well, but in terms of efficiency, cost efficiency, you can challenge it because people has to do their own marketing and then supply, and of course collect the remaining of the payment, collect subsidy from APC itself, taking long time. So the cost efficiency of the subsidy was not that great, but it still created a market as a promotional thing that there is subsidy available. Actually didn't work that much to the reduction of the upfront cost of investment, but I think we have been leveling it as a discount for marketing, having some aspect of quality built in it, so that people get it in their places with an average quality, so that at least the additional overhead of marketing and quality assurance was paid from the subsidy in the small scheme. But in the bigger schemes, of course, the investment is subsidized by the subsidy, because you have a mini hydro or your mini grid, then this story is different, because you then really have a financing impact or subsidized financing of the total cost. So this is what we have been doing. I think over a period of time, you will meet different people. There will be more technical, detailed discussion coming in terms of financing, in terms of the technical aspect, if you are interested. But yeah, this effort was worth it to see. We also like to come to your country sometime and see what we have been doing. I think the exchange is very much useful, that we can see what we are doing, and we can learn the good thing, and then we may avoid the things which didn't work. Of course, they are all contextual, but there are some generic issues which you could avoid. Especially, I think the big hurdle, as we all discussed, is as a technical quality assurance and driving in private sector to provide the services. This is a very conservative way of thinking in the developing government. Mostly the subsidy cannot be channeled through the private sector. When we put the money in the public sector, the cost efficiency and the management, it's not good. So this dilemma is there, and I'm fully on the side that if the policy has allowed, let's have the private sector driving the things, let's finance them with a justified subsidy or grant. Let's get the quality service from them rather than government trying to do everything themselves, eventually leading it to the fail. So that's the lesson learned, but it's not easy that a big portion of subsidy should go to the private sector. So that's the challenge of the day, I think, for everywhere, because the cost efficiency will not come unless you bring a justified private sector in the business. So that's where we are struggling, but it's still a long way to go. But things are changing fast. Hopefully, we've been succeeding. You can contact me or contact my colleague. You will be coming to my office also in the afternoon, so you can continue this discussion. So I also suggest the organizer, please don't repeat the same thing everywhere. Give them something short and sweet and evaluate to the discussion so that it will be an interesting trip and you have more time to have more free discussion rather than someone's talking the same thing again and again. So that could be a good approach to optimize the time. And please do not leave any space to look around Kathmandu. It's a historical place. It's a science city with a lot of pollution and traffic congestions. People have different ways of living their lives, very different from maybe Africa. So find some time to observe these things also, so that actually adds value to your trip. These things we have everywhere in the net. You can read these things very easily if you are really interested. And even we can have a long discussion over an email or whatever media you like. So there's no need to just confine yourself in the room and just listen the whole thing again and again. I wish you all the best here. Safe and healthy stay in Kathmandu. I think the management will be taking care that you should be a little bit careful in drinking water and eating outside. The rest is fine. Thank you very much.
We have two systems, but there's a particular measure. One is this light static and other is gravimetric system. Gravimetric system. This is the filter housing. This is the filter housing. We put this gravimetric housing there, and we measure actual emission according to this isokinetic field sampling system. We measure actual emission and we measure it. We have high bit microbalance over this room. This is the going room. We have
So अर्को सोन सिमुलेटर चाहिँ हाम्रो अर्को बिल्डिङमा छ आई थिंक इट्स लिटल बिट फार एन्ड आई थिंक मोस्ट अफ देम यु अलरेडी नो अबाउट प्रिन्सिपल एन्ड त्यसैले अब यसलाई सोलर प्यानल टेस्टिङ फेसिलिटी लगाएन होला बताएको पनि छ
What APC is and how we have it working. I believe it's a joint delegation comprising of government, financial institutions, and private sector from Ethiopia, right? Yeah. So I'm Gauraj Kakal. I work with APC as a director. And I have worked in this institution for the last 17 years. So 16 years come today and 72 years. Basically, this organization is the government of Nepal's nodal agency for promotion of renewable energy. Matthew, sir. When we were established in the year 1996, we were given mandate to work on renewable energy only. But recently, with the amendment in our formation in our statute, we have been given mandate to work in energy efficiency also. So that's also energy programs. We adopted very much participatory approach. We developed our policies, procedures, and working guidelines in partnership with the private sector, with the NGOs, with development partners, and the financing institutions. And that really created a kind of sector development environment. So when we started working in 1996, there were only few handful of companies Now there are more than 500 companies, and the Renewable Energy Confederation of Nepal, RECON, who is coordinating this visit, is a kind of umbrella organization of all those sector partners. So this is how sector is structured and governed. And after the new constitution in 2015, we have now 3 levels of government: federal, provincial, and local level. We are part of the federal government. We are in the Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation of the federal government. But we have close working relation with the provincial and local governments. At province level, this energy mandate is endowed with the Ministry of Physical Infrastructure Development, MOPI. We have 7 provinces, and we have MOU with all 7 provincial MOPIs to work together for the development of renewable energy in their respective provinces. And we have MOU with the 2 associations of the local governments. In local governments, we have 2 broad categories. One is the rural municipality, other category is the municipality. Within the municipalities, there are 3 different categories: metro, sub-metro, and municipals. Two separate categories have 2 separate associations, and we have the MOU with those associations also, so that we can support and we can collaborate with the provincial and local governments very closely for the formulation of renewable energy policies, procedures, guidelines, and their periodic plans, and implement the projects to do monitoring, evaluation, and all that. So this is how in the new setup we are going to work, and with the implementation of the federal setup, we are now sort of trying to give out regular implementation tasks at the local level. This is as per the mandate given by the Constitution, and we graduate a bit higher. We graduate a bit higher because when the regular implementation task is done by the local governments or the provincial governments, then we could focus on the national level policies, plans, mobilizing the resources from national and international level, and then developing standards at the national level, which could be adopted by provincial and local governments. So this is how we are trying to evolve in the new setting. So the federal system is very new. We had a new constitution in 2015 and 3 levels of election in 2017. So it's just 2 years has passed after the elections happened, and after the elections, most of the federal set of related things started to move. And on the standard side, what we do is we especially get inspired from different international standards. For example, for different technologies, working standards from the respective sector or from the international organizations or from the international projects. And based on the local projects, local need, we develop national standards. Our national standard body is called NBSN, National Bureau of Standards and Metrology. When we had consultation with them, what they advised to us is, let's start formulating some interim kind of standards and work together with the industry and partners with the interim standards. Once the interim standards are implemented for a certain period and they get mature, then they can convert into the national standard. So in that context, we have a few interim standards we have, for example, for solar photovoltaics, and then introduction, guiding policy, strategy, and guidelines. We were just already talking about some of them, and then collaborating external development partners, cumulative physical and projects and key achievements, and way forward. How we are looking forward. So Nepal's energy sector is very much dominated by the traditional energy. Since we have already started sessions this morning, this chart you may have already seen today.
In a rural setting or in the urban setting, and also do you import
Yeah.
LPG or you produce locally,
Yeah.
how is that accepted by the, especially if it's in the rural area, how is the acceptance from the cultural cooking perspective, and how easy that product, because that's very important thing for us to know.
Thank you. Very good question. Actually, mainly the LPG used for cooking is in urban and semi-urban areas, but now because of the road access, it's gradually penetrating even in the rural areas. But 100% of LPG is imported. Not only LPG, 100% of petroleum products is imported in this country because we do not have any proven reserves yet. So that's why one of the key goals that the government has taken is we want to reduce the dependency. Mainly we want to reduce the imports. So that's why for clean cooking, electricity-based cooking is the top priority now because many big hydro projects are coming online and renewable energy projects are also contributing. So that's why we want to go into electric cooking. If electricity-based cooking is not possible, second option biogas, and third option efficient biomass cookstoves, either fire-based or pellet-based. So this is how the cooking sector is currently addressed.
So the LPGs are distributed to consumer in a form of bottle?
Yes.
Do you have a gas pipe?
No, not pipe. It's through the cylinders, what we call. So normally the 14.2 kg cylinder is the common the business rule. But there might be some bigger cylinders, so smaller ones are not that common. And very recently, especially through the waste to energy type large biogas projects, we have been able to directly replace the LPG in the urban sector, especially for the institutional cooking at the hotels or restaurants or some small industries. So the big biogas plants, we generate gas, we purify that, bottle into cylinders, and supply to those consumers who cook in big scale.
Do you have that figure?
Very recently, only a few numbers, 5-6 projects we have done so far, and one of the main focus is to increase such types of projects. So it has been demonstrated well, but in terms of contribution in figures, it's still there. Yeah.
Actually, you have to explain some points. Then it will be good experience for us. How you are just, if you got some points on that, and then maybe the challenge, if you have some challenges on that, if you just add some points.
Okay, very good. Actually, the renewable energy subsidy policy is a document which is approved by the cabinet level, the Council of Ministers, and it has very specific things like for which technology, for which geographic area, how much amount is the subsidy. So it's very specific. And while channeling that subsidy, the subsidy delivery mechanism is the main operational document which we follow. And if I may tell you very brief, for example, there is two separate system for household and community or institutional things. For the household systems, the companies who are recognized by us go with the technology which is recognized by us and do door-to-door marketing, and they sell the technology. While selling the technology to the households, they deduct the subsidy amount and charge the users. So for the users, subsidy is like a mass pay, and they collect some documents to verify the system is installed in that particular house, the installed system photo, copy of citizenship, and our completed form, signature, thumbprint, like that. And they submit on behalf of the user to us through an online system. And our team here processes through online system, whether they have properly filled in the forms, whether they are collecting the right documents, do the verification. And after checking that, we forward it to the CRIF, and through CRIF it gets paid. For the community and institutional systems, they have to apply first, and then there are different study phases like pre-feasibility, detailed feasibility, and once the detailed feasibility report is ready, there are different technical review committees through which those reports go through. And once the technical review committee goes through the report and they endorse the report, they approve the report, and then we estimate the amount of indicative subsidy as per the policy. The users or the project developers are asked to arrange the rest of the money, and once the financial closure is achieved, subsidy is approved, construction starts, and the payment is milestone-based. For example, upon delivery of the equipment, we pay certain amount. Upon construction completion, we pay certain amount. And after the construction is completed and power output is tested, then we provide 90% of the amount. 10% is retained for after-sales service up to 1 year. So this is how the system is working. But the subsidy policy, the first policy was introduced in the year 2000, and every 2 to 3 years we continue revising the policy. Based on the past learning of 2 to 3 years, we update. So latest version was uploaded in 2016, and we have already started working on the next revision, because in last 2 to 3 years we have a lot of learning, so we incorporate those learnings and we update the policy.
But what is the source of the subsidy fund? Is it contribution by the government itself, or it is mobilized from the donors?
Yeah, very good question actually. When we started our operation, most of the subsidy fund used to come from the donors. Initial programs in 1999 or 2000, government of Nepal was contributing only 10% and 90% used to come from the donors. But gradually government's contribution in the subsidy has increased. Currently it's about 60% comes from the government, 40% from the donors. But it's project to project it's different. In some projects, donors might be putting 100% money. In some projects, government might be putting 100%. But in an average, now the government contribution is nearly 60%.
Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Home, and different government entities, Department of Immigration. I would like to thank them all that they made this visit possible, and also that RECON. We came to know about RECON through colleagues from AEPC, and RECON was kind enough to help facilitate this visit. So I would like to extend sincere gratitude to all colleagues who were involved in this visit, managing this visit. From UNCDF side, please accept our sincere thanks to RECON team as well. And CREF, I'm sure CREF colleagues will be coming. CREF colleagues, especially Manojji, was also very helpful in arranging this visit. I would like to thank him as well. Now, without taking much time, I want the MC to proceed with the program, and I'm very much curious to hear from Ethiopian team that how did you find rural energy developments in Nepal? Please be candid. You don't have to say all nice things about Nepal. Please say whatever you have seen and where we can improve in Nepal, so that if you give a candid sort of opinion about the technologies, the places you visited, then we will be grateful to have your views. Thanks a lot.
Part of the population in the country, and over the years it has developed, not only in terms of efficiency of the technology, but also in terms of process and policies. And we also see that more and more people are being attracted at the supply end as well as at the demand end. And we have been coming up with different types of projects focusing on different elements of the technology, and one of them is the gender and social inclusion approach in any of the projects. And this has been initiated together with the conception that was developed within the UN. So just to inform you, Nepal is the only country which has the social inclusion together with the gender. And that is because if you have had a review of our country's culture and tradition, you realize that because of the social exclusion factors that are very alive at the grassroots ends, in July went with very little warm clothes. Then suddenly we realized that we are at the other end of the hemisphere and shivering to death. But I think you are looking forward to the warm weather, and hope you have a nice, safe flight, and hope your experiences in Nepal has been as good as we expected. Thank you.
Thank you.
is a federal system. We have 9 regional states and 2 city administrations. Of course, recently we made one referendum and included one additional regional state. So that makes us 10 regional states and 2 state administrations. Our currency is Ethiopian birr. It is around 1 Ethiopian birr is around.
Try to separate into about four area. So the first lessons that we've got from here is the overall system. Under the overall system, we've tried to see the existing policies and regulation support that existed for the off-grid area. The testing, the certification system, the tax exemption, and the subsidies. I've heard some Nepalis are not happy about the subsidies, but somehow it's important for the off-grid. Actually, from our experience, we think it's also important, at least not a direct subsidy, but an indirect subsidy to enhance the market. So we found it as a very good lesson that can be replicated in our country. And the other thing that we've seen is there is a very, very good coordination which we miss back home. A coordination, even the way the structure is set. The federal system, starting from the federal ministry to alternative energy promotion center and renewable energy testing center and etc. So all this structural mechanism is really important, and we thought this is something that we can replicate. And linking the quality with the subsidy. In our country, we've tried to develop a quality standard for product qualities, but what we're trying is like a kind of enforcement mechanism. But what we've got from here is a kind of carrot approach, not a stick approach. So I think this is a very important and good lesson that we can use it at back home. And the other thing is a very good coordination that we've witnessed among the government, the UN, the NGOs, the banking sector, and the private sector. All these are coming up together, and for us, it seems it works. The coordination works very well, and I think impacts are already shown at the ground level. And also, something we lack back home is the private sector. Here, everything is led by the private sector, which is a very, very good lesson for us. Our economy, as Tuostras explained, some years back we were military, a kind of communist-led political system, and now we are opening up the market, but our private sector is in a very premature stage. So here, what we have seen is mainly most of the energy sector development is derived by the private sector, which is really fascinating for us and which can be also taken from here. And from the system, last but not least, it's not because I'm a woman, it's really impressive because when we travel from Kathmandu all the way to Pokhara, we saw the entire soil and environment conservation, and we were asking how, because this is what we're missing at home. We have a lot of land and forest degradation, but we didn't see it in here because given our socio-economic context is similar, our energy consumption is similar, you're also depending on more than 70% on biomass, but we don't see a kind of bare land. So we asked why, and then the answer given to us is you have a very good community for sector management, which is led by these intelligent women. So this is very, very fascinating for us, and this forest sector women association is not just to protect the environment, but it has a very several multiple impact benefits, the social, the economic, the environment, and even they have the organization a kind of saving their credit in a way they facilitate access to finance. And also, it's a means, I think, to distribute the renewable energy technology. So these are really a kind of hands-on experience and it can be easily replicated. And the other category under the lesson is the finance, because finance is the most important thing, though we have the technologies that we can develop back home and also import. But the financing is one of the bottleneck. So what we found here is the first one is the basket funding mechanisms that you've introduced. And what fascinated us is this basket funding mechanism is not just depends on donor, 60% financed by the government. This is really impressive. And also the NA, maybe I forgot the abbreviation. The bank is really doing a great work, and they are providing a loanable fund from the basket fund for the MFIs and for the cooperatives. And it's a kind of win-win. The bank also uses that as a saving and uses to do their own lending, and also to unlock the loanable fund for the MFIs. This is also another fascinating experience. And the subsidy system, as I said, still the off-grid market. I don't know your country. In our country, the grid is subsidized. If you take the grid users, mainly are the relatively the rich, but there is a subsidy for the rich, and why not for the poor? So this is something that we can really take from here. So we think this is also a good lesson. And another thing that interested us is the role of small farmers development bank, that provides a consumer funding for the end user. And also not only that, this small farmers development bank, they've informed us that they are also providing the financial support for the minority, for the untouchable. So this is also something we can take. The third category of the lesson is the technology part. As I said earlier, we have many technologies sophisticated out there, but what we saw in Nepal is something that can be replicated tomorrow when we go back home. So among them, the commercial biogas plant, the one that produces 45 tons per day, with a multiple benefit, not only from the renewable energy aspect, but also from the organic fertilizer, and also another multiple impact, the municipal waste management, import substitution of LPG, and environment climate change contributes to the environment and climate change aspect. And also the battery-less solar energy, the net metering, to intensify the grid. We have also a lot of issues related to the blackout. Our electricity also goes for a tea break sometimes. So I think this is something we can really take, especially for the productive use for the institutions. And of course the Pico mini grid hydropower, as Atasres mentioned. For us, it's mainly the big mega dams. We have a few, but it's not like yours. We don't have such many Pico and mini hydros here and there. I think this is something can be replicated at least to reach up to your level. Now you've reached 90% electricity, right? So ours is not yet there. Ours is around 35. Yeah. So the solar water pumping, the charcoal, everything is again something we can learn. And another thing we've seen is the promotion aspect. We were in the Pasca village this morning, and we have a couple of promotion experts from the ministry. The way we promote this renewable energy is from the energy aspect only, but at the Pasca village they use evidence-based related with the health aspect. Instead of telling for people use this technology, it saves your biomass, and biomass is abundant, so why do they spend extra money to buy the technology? So rather, if you tell them, oh, it's good for your health, especially if they told via the doctor, I think that's very good approach. So this is something we've also learned. And also the subsidy and quality promotion of the quality through the subsidy system. That's also a very good approach. And finally,
Wow, that was really great work. And of course, I think we should pat ourselves, all the Nepalese, because we had lots to offer. Something we have been ignoring, we didn't know about. But when it comes from the other side, it's really good. And I would say, good work, Nepal. Let's keep this relation on. And now I think people would want to learn more. They have some questions. If you have, okay, I'll take 2 questions at a time so that we give them sufficient time to respond as well. Okay, sir, please introduce yourself and go ahead with your question.
Namaste, good afternoon. My name is Ram. By profession, I am a civil engineer. I work in South Sudan and enjoy injera. Injera, your food in Juba. Very good food. Yeah, injera, yeah. Just my question is about the Nile River Treaty, which is among the, I think, 11 or 9 countries among that things. And you are working in that Blue Nile. This treaty is you negotiating again, or how is the working together with that things? And another thing is the power trade. You talking about the Eritrea, Sudan, Kenya, and that things. How you are successfully execute that power trade with the neighboring country? That things. And third one is I would ask, you are also in the federal system. The energy distribution system, you are in the centrally command, or you are in the federal system or local system? That is my question. And the final one is the investment of the issue you mentioned. How you collecting that big money? You have a good foreign trade, or how you collecting that money invest in the that hydropower energy sector? Thank you so much.
Ooh. I said 2 questions, but there are 4 here. Please forgive me for that. Anyone? And the first question was about the Nile negotiation. Second is about the power trade. Third is about the fundraising. And the last one is about
Energy distribution.
whose hands is the command, energy command. Okay. Who would like to take up this challenge of responding to those 4 questions?
Let me try.
Yeah. All of them, all of the questions are very important questions. Really, my friends, they will try to help me to make clear by providing additional information. You see, the negotiations are getting quite very, I mean, with amicable understanding. We had a conflict is only with Egypt. The Egyptians, as you know, they always pushing from the. We government employees, we contributed to the Nile Dam construction from our salary. Everybody is supposed to pay for that. So
It's the people's project now.
the people's project. What was the third question? The first or
The power trade.
the power trade?
Other countries.
Yeah, yeah. There is a lot of demand, especially from the Sudan side, the Djibouti side. Djibouti is almost our, our port, our country, I can say, because they, their land is a dry land, so there is no possibility of cultivation. They are now getting all the food resources from Ethiopia, water resource. Even we are supplying them water
for drinking. So there is a power purchase agreement. There are some formal agreements undertaken among countries. By that approach, the government is ready. And we are selling even right now to Djibouti with a minimum tariff. By the way, Djibouti is, without Ethiopia, Djibouti cannot exist. It is the port income that they are surviving. So we consider as our country. I think additional.
Just to add on the last point, the power
Investment.
the power trade between the countries. Recently, the Africa Union Commission, all the member states, they signed the regional integration, common trade within the countries. So one of the things to integrate Africa is economic and infrastructure development. So under the infrastructure, the power sector has a very high priority. And to do this power integration, there is a big East African power pool. There are about 5 power pools in Africa. There is a Maghreb, the Northern Africa power pool, which is a bit advanced, and in terms of time period also, it's a kind of a pioneer. And then the East African power pool and the Southern Africa power pool, and we have also the Central Africa power pool. So even all the power pools are somehow linked. The East Africa power pool goes to Tanzania, and then the Tanzania power pool connects to the South Africa. So the Southern Africa and Eastern Africa is connected. And also the Eastern Africa power pool, Egypt and Sudan are part of the Eastern Africa. So in a way it is connected to the Northern. So all these power pools are connecting now, and it's a huge priority. And because of that, many countries, Ethiopia, Kenya, and also other Eastern Africa countries are generating their own, and also coordinating and collaborating to construct this, the lines, the power pools among the networking, exactly, and mainly financed by the development banks like Africa Development Bank, and some are by the Chinese Exim Bank as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions?
My name is David Haile from Ethiopia, Ministry of Water and Irrigation. My question is, what makes you successful in the dissemination of 500,000 biogas plants? What is the secret behind or the system?
Anybody from the biogas sector to answer this question? Let me translate it in Nepali. हाम्रो बायोग्यास को प्रोजेक्ट चाहिँ नि सक्सेसफुल हुनको लागि के फ्याक्टर्सहरूले चाहिँ नि त्यसलाई सपोर्ट गरेको छ Secret. You don't reveal your secrets, really. So to be more candid. Okay.
I think very genuine question. And I'm from Ethiopia. Sululta. And I've been working in the biogas sector for the last 17 years, and I think, sir, what is the secret is, I think, demand. People need energy, green energy, renewable energy. And when you promote with consciousness, like the government policies there, and some donor policies there, and if there is a good program like training, mason training, supervisor training, all those things is there. If users are happy, then this is the success. And I'm also promoting this large size bike in Ethiopia with SMB. And for you, he's my student. And There is like 60 and 80 cubic meter biogas being piloted, and very near future I am going there to promote again, and then I hope. I'm very happy that we all see what is the development going in Nepal, and we have seen that large size biogas. I think I have seen that it can be done in Ethiopia, and wish you all the best and happy home back.
I was working with BSP Nepal for more than 16 years in biogas, and I was handling the promotion and training section of BSP Nepal with SFB. Just to add up Prakash's answer, that it's the women who is promoting biogas plant, because they are the users, main users, who feel comfort in using biogas plant. That's one major cause, word of mouth of women. And I have also a question, since I belong to biogas sector for more than 4 more years, so I just wanted to know that what is the status of biogas development in Ethiopia? As I have seen in your presentation, you have Dong and we have similar geographical and also other situations. So what is the status of biogas in Ethiopia? Anybody? So, Prakashji, you have a good student.
Thank you. The biogas program is started in 2008 at the program level, and all the PID and other technical is copied from or are adapted from Nepal, because Nepal is, as I read, Nepal is one of the successful country in the world, not in number. This functional rate is the best, and from 2008 up to now, we installed around 25,000. But as we have seen in the Nepal, you construct 40,000 per year. Am I right? I think around, yeah. So this is 25,000 is household. Last year or before 6 months, we start large scale biogas by technical supporting Nepal, as he said, Mr. Prakash, and we installed two digesters. One is 80 cubic meters, the other is 30 cubic meters for demonstration purpose, and we have a plan up to 2020. We will have to construct 40 large-scale digesters. This is. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
My name is Kalidas. Just I would like to add Prakash. First thing is demand. Second thing is technology. These two things are the secret for improving spreading the biogas in Nepal. Thank you.
Any questions?
It's more additional information about the status of biogas. The technology was in the country for about 30 years, I can say. But the progress was not as fast as the past 10 years. When SNV has started by adopting from the Nepalese way of approach, as my friend mentioned, we have reached 25,000 biogas. Relatively, it is okay. Of course, having compared to the resource, the work that we did still is insignificant. But it is a very good move for us, because 25,000, it can be a model for many of the regional states, because the plants constructed are regionally distributed. So we hope that the coming period could be very good time if we really follow the Nepalese way of implementing programs. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. I think we go for 2 more questions.
So my question is to the Ethiopian team, of course. Our colleague from UNDP Ethiopia had mentioned that, of course, subsidy is good when it comes to off-grid, to take off of off-grid technologies. In a emerging market, I think that's needed. But of course, relative to the subsidized on-grid energy that you have, perhaps you can justify. But I wanted to know the status of development of the private sector in the renewable energy the sector, and how they perceive the subsidy that's provided to the off-grid system. How does it affect, whether it's positive, negative, for the offtake of the renewable energy technologies?
This is a very beautiful question. Development of the private sector, the energy actually field is really very much encouraging, because you see the economy is hungry of energy. As I tried to mention, below 7, above 7, sometimes it was even 0.1 growth, economic growth. So because of the rapid economic growth, energy is needed. So the private sector is much encouraged now, especially for solar energy. Companies are emerging. Biomass energy companies are emerging. Therefore, the private sector is now advised really to generate energy by themselves for the use. There are a lot of manufacturing industries established in many of the regional states. For that, the private sector is advised really to undertake energy development, because the government could not really supply them adequately, because there are other issues needed.
Yes, I think the private sector, especially in the off-grid, what we've learned as a UNDP, when we develop our intervention, we did a kind of baseline assessment, baseline survey, and what we found out, among the bottlenecks, 2 things came up, actually many, but most of the thing is de-risking the financing sector. In our country, the financing sector is not developed as well, not just the private sector. So investment and capital is a very big challenge. Getting loan is one of the bottleneck. So the financing sector, the underdeveloped financing sector, is also contributes to the low development of the private sector. So I would say nowadays things are changing. There are a lot of doors are opening for the private sector in terms of concessional loan, guarantee fund, things like that. Even tax exemption on renewable energy. But still a lot, I believe, as a UNDP, we believe that a lot needs to be done to subsidize the off-grid sector and to unlock and also to de-risk the marketing environment. And this is what is believed among the private sector as well. So when we refer the private sector, we are also talking about the big foreign direct investors, the hydro dam generator, the energy generators, the transmission line, companies and things like that. We are also referring the local enterprises, those manufacture and produces and disseminate the technologies. the improved cook stove and the solar home system. So when we talk about the private sector, mainly we are referring this lower level, the local enterprises, those who are not, who doesn't have many access for the finance and even for the foreign currency. When we refer to the solar energy, it's an import, 100% import. So it needs a lot of support, not just only a subsidy, but in the form of a regulation, regulatory, and many, many other policy and strategy.
I'd just like to break this question session by bringing in Mr. Navras. What made you do this? Of course, I did hear about the employment generation and things like that. And second is, how did you promote the private sector to take up this cook stoves program at such a large level? And you have such a huge target to meet. That means it has been done from baseline studies and you have seen that it is feasible. So I'd like to, my question is, what measures have you taken in order to come up with such a bold move? And second is, Nepal always says bye-bye, means all the neighboring countries are brothers. But the relation is that of a grandfather and a grandson. Okay? So in this aspect, there are some very commendable measures the African countries have taken up as a region. And how did you all come by this? Because it is very difficult for us to even comprehend that such a huge continent comes together in building a transmission network that will reach out across the continent. And my third question, I said two, but let me take up the time that is given to me, especially because I have my humanity. The third question is, how do you foresee the private sector contributing to the Universal Energy Access Program in your country? And what are the highlights of the policies that you have developed in order to make sure that they play a sustainable partner in this whole approach? And how are you, since I said universal access, just taking a transmission line closer to anybody's house doesn't mean that they use it. Access means use. Then only we can say that the program has been successful. How are you ensuring that the marginalized groups can enjoy the benefits of clean energy? What policy measures have you taken up? I said 2, multiply by 2, okay? And after this, I think since we are coming to the close of the program, we will end it amicably. Anybody wants to take up the questions?
Maybe just before my colleagues, I just want to say something about this improved cook stoves situation. As it has been noted in the presentation.
एक नाले बंदूक दुई नाले बंदूक मिर्गलाई ताकेको एक नाले बंदूक दुई नाले बंदूक मिर्गलाई ताकेको मिर्गलाई मैले ताकेको हैन मायालाई ताकेको रेशम तिरिरी उडेर जाउँ कि डाँडामा भन्छन् रेशम तिरिरी बिरालोलाई कुकुरालाई कुरी कुरी बिरालोलाई सुरी कुकुरालाई कुरी कुरी बिरालोलाई सुरी तिम्रो हाम्रो माया पिरती दो बाटोमा कुरी रेशम तिरिरी उडेर जाउँ कि डाँडामा भन्छन् रेशम तिरिरी रेशम तिरिरी उडेर जाउँ कि डाँडामा भन्ज्याङ रेशम फेरि उडेर जाउँ कि डाँडामा भन्ज्याङ रेशम फेरि थ्याङ्क यू